Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Patriots History. And I've been missing in action because I've been up at the Reagan Library and the Reagan Ranch and the Nixon Library. And if you haven't been there, you need an invitation to get to the Reagan Ranch. But if you haven't been to the Reagan Library or the Nixon Library, you should do so. Nixon Library is in Yorba Linda, San Clemente, and Reagan Libraries in Simi Valley. They're about 4 hours apart. So we started with the Reagan Library. Last time I was there was in 2019, and I thought it had gone downhill a little bit in terms of just overall class, and they made a bunch of adjustments. They changed some of the coloring. They took out the Checkpoint Charlie kind of exhibit, which I thought was really cool. But this time it was much better. It wasn't as good as it was before 2019, but it was much better. And they said, the docent said they were constantly changing it and improving it and doing different things. They had, for whatever reason, a Holocaust exhibit there. I'm not exactly sure what Reagan has to do with the Holocaust, but I didn't take the tour. That was a separate hour-and-a-half tour. It also cost more money. Those who did take it told me it was obviously pretty depressing. But they have Air Force One there that Reagan flew on, the actual airplane, Marine One, which I think is a different Marine One than he flew on. Overall, it's just a great, great experience, an amazing place. The memorabilia is fantastic. They had two particular films that I thought were tearjerkers. I mean, just one was the General Electric theater years, but really they did Reagan's whole life, and it was a great film. And then at the end, they kind of had a wrap up of his life, and it also was just a wonderful, wonderful movie, and brought you to tears. So I would say, in order, the best presidential libraries that I've seen are Reagan #1, very close second is Lyndon Johnson Library. Third is the Nixon Library, which was very good and had a POW exhibit from Vietnam that was especially good. Got myself a Nixon t-shirt. So it's worth doing. Either library is fantastic, and they didn't whitewash any of Nixon's Watergate stuff. It was very well handled. So that's where I have been. Then on Saturday, I gave a talk that we will have on our website to Young America's Foundation, to 150 high school students, and were they fantastic? They were screaming and yelling, and it was just a great experience there at the Reagan Ranch Center. And so, like I said, I think we will have that up on Wild World of History website. Just a couple of notes. Again, if you want politics, you want to talk more politics, sign up for the Insider on Wild World of Politics. It's $5 a month, $69 a year, and you get video commentaries every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, where I go into the latest news in depth, political news in depth. You get 5 or 6 video series, including my latest one, Globalism Then and Now, which is kind of a precursor to the Globalism book that's coming out on February 20th. Also, there's Churchill, Lessons in Integrity. Or you can sign up for the VIP, again, $5 a month on the Wild World of History side. This is obviously more history-oriented. It gives you access to 2 years of my Wild Wednesday webcasts, which were on topics of everything from UFOs in history to, the real Andrew Jackson, to Napoleon, to Hitler, to World War II in the Pacific. And great stuff there. 40 or 50 hours of videos, plus 6 ongoing lesson series, including Churchill and Reagan, the American president. Also, very important, our Black Friday deals are now up, I think. So get ready. Usually we roll this out on the day after Thanksgiving, but I think they are up. And so if you plan to do Christmas shopping, these are books. They're going to take a while to ship. Post office has been incredibly slow these days. So get your order in early. All right, we are continuing with our reading of A Patriot's History of the United States. I just noticed, someone brought to my attention, lessons 1 through 14 are missing from YouTube. Now, I don't know if I ran out of space and my account is out of space. I don't know what's going on. We're going to talk to them tomorrow and figure out what it is. But if we're out of space, then you're going to have to keep up at least somewhat, right? This is lesson 78. So, if you're just starting, you might want to pick up the pace. But anyway, as always, I am reading from the 15th anniversary edition, which is in its 41st printing. And I am in the chapter, The Perils and Promise of Jackson. And I am at the header on page 202 called Setting the Table for Growth. If you have a different edition or a different printing, the page numbers might be off, but the header should be the same, Setting the Table for Growth. At the end of the War of 1812, America emerged in a strong military and diplomatic position. The end of the Franco-British struggle not only quickened an alliance between the two European powerhouses, but also inevitably drew the United States into their orbit and, a century later, them into ours. American involvement in 2 world wars fought primarily in Europe, and a third Cold War was based on the premise that the 3 nations shared fundamental assumptions about human rights and civic responsibilities that tied them together more closely than any other set of allies in the world. Getting to that point, however, would not have been possible without consistently solid diplomacy and sensible restraint in critical times. As in the case of Florida, which remained an important pocket of foreign occupation in the map of the United States east of the Mississippi. In 1818, Spain held on to Florida by a slender thread, for the once mighty Spanish Empire was in complete disarray. Spain's economic woes and corrupt imperial bureaucracy encouraged revolutionaries in Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico to follow the American example and overthrow their European masters. Within 5 years, Spain had lost nearly half of its holdings in the Western Hemisphere. From the point of view of the United States, Florida was ripe for the plucking. President Monroe and its Secretary of State John Quincy Adams understandably wanted to avoid overtly seizing Florida from Spain, a nation with which they were at peace. Adams opened negotiations with the Spanish minister Luis de Onís. Before he could arrive at a settlement, General Andrew Jackson seized Florida for the United States. But Jackson followed a route to Pensacola that is more complex and troublesome for historians to trace today than it was for Jackson and his men to march through in 1818. Jackson's capture of Florida began when Monroe sent him south to attack the Seminole Indians, allies of the reviled Creeks he had defeated at Horseshoe Bend in 1814. So Monroe sends him off to attack, ostensibly, an ally. Some Seminole used northern Florida's Panhandle region as a base to raid American planters and harbor escaped slaves. Alabamians and Georgians demanded government action. On December 26, 1817, the Secretary of War, John C. Calhoun, ordered Jackson to, quote, adopt the necessary measures, unquote, to neutralize the Seminoles, but did not specify whether he was to cross the international boundary in his pursuit. In a letter to Monroe, Jackson wrote that he would gladly defeat the Seminoles and capture Spanish Florida if it was, quote, signified to me through any channel that the possession of Floridas would be desirable to the United States, unquote. Jackson later claimed he received the go-ahead, a point the administration staunchly denied. The general went so far as to promise that he would, quote, ensure you Cuba in a few days. If Monroe would supply him with a frigate, an offer the president wisely refused. Later, when questioned about his unwillingness to rein in the expansionist Jackson, Monroe pleaded ill health. Whoever was telling the truth, it mattered little to the Indians and the Spaniards, who soon felt the wrath of the hero of New Orleans. Between April 1st and May 28th, Andrew Jackson's military accomplishments were nothing short of spectacular. Indeed, some deemed them outrageous. He invaded Florida and defeated the Seminole raiders, capturing their chiefs along with 2 English citizens, Alexander Arbuthnot and Robert Armbruster, who had the great misfortune of being with the Indians at the time. Convinced the Englishmen were responsible for fomenting Indian attacks, Jackson court-martialed and hanged both men. By mid-May, he moved on Fort Pensacola, which surrendered to him on May 28, 1818, making Florida part of the United States by right of conquest, despite the illegality of Jackson's invasion, all carried out without exposure to journalists. Although Monroe and Adams later disclaimed Jackson's actions, they did not punish him, nor did they return the huge prize of his warfare, nor did Congress censure him for usurping its constitutional war power. Jackson was able to wildly supersede his authority largely because of the absence of an omnipresent media, but the United States gained substantially from the general's actions. Illegal as Jackson's exploits were, the fact was that Spain could not patrol its own borders. The Seminole posed, quote, a clear and present danger, unquote, and the campaign was not unlike that launched by General John Pershing in 1916 with the approval of Woodrow Wilson and Congress to invade Mexico for the purpose of capturing the bandit Pancho Villa. Jackson set the stage for Adams to formalize the victory in a momentous diplomatic agreement. The Adams-O'Neill Treaty of 1819 settled the Florida question and also addressed 3 other matters crucial to America's westward advance across the continent. First, the United States paid Spain $5 million and gained all of Florida, which was formally conveyed in July 1821. In addition, Adams agreed that Spanish Texas was not a part of the Louisiana Purchase, as some American expansionists had erroneously claimed. Negotiators had formalized the hazy 1803 Louisiana Purchase boundary line all the way to the Canadian border. Finally, Spain relinquished all claims to the Pacific Northwest, leaving the Indians, Russians, and British with the United States as a remaining claimant. From Santa Fe to Montana country, that's the header. In 1820, Monroe dispatched an army expedition to map and explore the Adams-O'Neill Treaty line. Major Stephen L. Longkeel boated up the Missouri and Platte rivers in search of, but never finding, the mouth of the Red River and a pass through the Rocky Mountains. Labeling the Central Great Plains, quote, a great American desert, Long helped to perpetuate a fear of crossing, much less settling, what is now the American heartland. He also helped to foster a belief that this remote and bleak land was so worthless that it was suitable only for a permanent Indian frontier, a home for relocated Eastern Indian tribes. Concurrent with Long's expedition, however, a trade route opened that would ultimately encourage Americanization of the Great Plains. Following the Mexican Revolution of 1820, the Santa Fe Trail opened, bringing American traders to the once forbidden lands of New Mexico. Santa Fe, in the mountains of northernmost Mexico, was closer to bringing American traders to the once forbidden lands of New Mexico. Santa Fe, in the mountains of northernmost Mexico, was closer to St. Louis than it was to Mexico City, a fact that Missouri merchants were quick to act upon. Santa Fe traders brought steamboat cargoes of goods from St. Louis up the Missouri to Independence, founded officially in 1827. There, they outfitted huge 2-ton Conestoga wagons hitched to teams of 10 to 12 oxen, gathered supplies, and listened to the latest reports from other travelers. They headed out with the green grass of May and, lacking federal troop escorts, traveled together in wagon trains to fend off Kiowa and Comanche Indians. The teamsters carried American cloth, cutlery, and hardware, and returned with much coveted Mexican silver, fur, and mules. The Santa Fe trade lasted until 1844, the eve of the Mexican-American War, providing teamsters practice that perfected plains wagoneering techniques, and their constant presence in the West chipped away at the great American desert myth. Moreover, they established the Missouri River towns that would soon serve the Oregon Trail immigrants' wagon trains. At the same time, Rocky Mountain fur traders, the so-called mountain men, headed up the Missouri to Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado country. British and American fur companies, such as the Northwest, American, and Hudson Bay companies, had operated posts on the Pacific Northwest coast since the 1790s, but in the 1820s, Americans sought the rich beaver trade of the inland mountains. St. Louis at the mouth of the Missouri served again as a major entrepot for early entrepreneurs like Manuel Lisa and William H. Ashley. Ashley's Rocky Mountain Fur Company set an exploratory company of adventurers up the Missouri to the mouth of the Yellowstone River in 1822-23, founding Fort William Henry near today's Montana-North Dakota boundary. This expedition included Big Mike Fink, Jedediah Smith, and other independent trappers who would form the cadre of the famous mountain men during the 1820s and 30s. But by the 1840s, the individual trappers were gone, victims of corporate buyouts and their own failure to conserve natural resources. They had, for example, overhunted the once plentiful beaver of the northern and southern Rockies. Significantly, mountain men explored and mapped the Rockies and their western slopes, paving the way for Oregon Trail migrants and California 49ers to follow. All right, I think that's a good place to stop. We'll pick up next time with Beyond the Monroe Doctrine. Let me remind you, we are trying to turn Patriots history into a film. This isn't a fly to fancy. We're serious. We've got the screenplay underway now. I need your support. Watch the trailer. It's just a concept trailer. We need to make a 3-scene pilot called A Torch that we will show to the makers of The Chosen and Sound of Freedom. Believe me, they can back this movie. They have a lot of money. If they like The Torch, they will support us. So help us make The Torch. Go to Wild World of History or Wild World of Politics. Watch the trailer. And if you like it, buy Larry a coffee. Meanwhile, we've got great book offers coming up here for Black Friday. All of our Black Friday deals are up on the web now. Of course, Patriot's History of Globalism is coming out in the spring, and we're going to have some special offers with that as well. And if you don't have an updated copy of Patriot's History, you should probably get one because times they are changing. Now, I've been working on a 20th anniversary edition, we'll call it that, with an extra chapter covering the years 2018 to 2023. And that we will probably have up in early spring. I wanted to have it up this year, but because Bannon is working with me on Patriot's History of Globalism, he asked that I refrain from putting that up before the new book comes out. So I did. So check out this stuff. Again, I'm going to try to see what happened to lessons 1 through 15. I don't know, but I'll have to get in touch with YouTube. All right, I will see you guys back here on Monday.